I'm John DeSando.
Classics, let's go to the movies and share some popcorn, soda pop with our friends. Turn off our cell phones and get away. Night or day, it's John DeSando on the radio. We'll watch the credits from up high and low.
Cinema Classics is produced by John DeSando. It airs Thursdays at 8:01 p.m. on WCBE 90.5 FM. Listen to shows and read reviews online at WCBE.org.
I'm John DeSando.
And I'm Wayne the Kong Miller.
And this is Cinema Classics.
It is.
And you know, we saw together Godzilla versus Kong, or let's say Godzilla Kong
Yeah.
in the New Empire on Good Friday.
Yes, that's right.
So we had some monsters resurrected in Christ.
Yeah. You know, you're absolutely right. And I think, and I was surprised, but of course they had so many showings there at the Phoenix Theaters there at Lenox Shopping Center. And so many of them, as well as, it'd be interesting to see this movie. It probably would have been too much overload, but they have it in IMAX, and also regular 3D and IMAX 3D.
Yeah.
My God, that would have just kind of blown us out of the theater.
Well, you know, I think they call them tent poles, but these are the ones that come along, and you know it, that they're hoping to survive on the revenue from these. So they have every one of their studios, in this case 24. There are probably 20 of them were devoted to this.
Yeah, and what we noticed that there was probably just the two of us and some guy and his two little boys there at the 5 p.m. showing. But you know, a good point about the tentpole, because over the weekend I was keeping track of that it is doing pretty well.
Oh, good.
That it is making money, and it had like a $35 million, I think, domestic here in the U.S. Opening day, which was Friday, and Good Friday. And good for them, and then they racked in several tens of millions more over the weekend.
Well, you know, there have been probably upwards of 50 different versions of the Godzilla Kong confrontation.
Well, and this latest one, part of what they call the Monsterverse, when they had Kong, Skull Island, and the Godzilla King of the Monster thing, and then of course the Kong versus Godzilla. I tell you though, they're enjoyable. I gotta give it.
Well, it's typical trash for you. You love them, and I just can't wait to get out of there.
Well, and I think they all pale in comparison with last year's Japanese Godzilla movie, Godzilla -1, you know.
A very fine film that you and I love. And why do you think it was? Because it was about people.
Exactly.
And they marginalize the people in this current one as they do in others.
Yes. And I want to say something about that too, because in some ways I found the acting, particularly of all the monkeys involved in this, much better than most of the human actors and actresses. Now, the little deaf Asian girl who is back from the Kong versus Godzilla movie, and Rebecca Hall, I think, did a good job. But I tell you what, I just. And I know that they were thrown in maybe for comic relief and stuff like that, but Dan Stevens and I think
Brian Tyree Henry, he should go and find other work. But actually, his lines were so stupid that I felt sorry for the guy. Well, I thought they were even stereotyping him as the buffoonish black guy, and who's afraid and whatever, and it just didn't work.
Yeah, and to compare him to Samuel L. Jackson in the Kong on Skull Island.
That's brutal. That's a brutal comparison.
Oh, it is a brutal, and but also Dan Stevens, who is a very fine British actor, and people would remember him. He was one of the leads on the PBS series Downton Abbey. But here he's just wasted.
Look at, yeah, I mean, it would be ridiculous to try to put together a coherent plot for this story, other than that these two monsters of as I'm glad you pointed that out, the Monsterverse they call it,
Yep.
like the Marvel universe and all that.
Yeah.
You got a term that will pull them all together, and that's fine. But in this case, so they eventually join forces. I mean, that to me, that's the big deal.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
get two power, similar to the U.S. and Russia,
Yeah.
suddenly deciding,
Yeah. Well,
I'm trying to make something out of this.
yeah, you are, and you're stretching it, but that's good. Keep going.
So they're finding out that the only way they're going to beat this, Mothra is helping him, right? Mothra's kind of,
Oh my God, John, there was you talk about the plot, and I'm trying to fit. Well, you can figure it out. Like, and of course, the subtitle of this movie is The New Empire, or
Right.
something like that. And all of these big ass apes, down in the hollow earth. I mean, there were so. I mean, I can stretch some credibility only so far, but my God, when they travel down there and all these apes plus all these this kind of mystical tribe of Asians that live down in there or whatever. But I tell you, I was wrung out afterwards. But then, as Mothra fluttered onto the scene, I just kind of threw up my hands at that point.
Well, they
gave up.
the monster in this case, remind me, who is they're fighting?
Some big ape that, but also, one of the reviews I read over a weekend and said, parts of it seemed like a tag team wrestling match, between the Godzilla and Kong on one side and matching them, other huge, that ran this big colony or tribe of apes in the hollow earth. And with his henchmen and everything, I thought it was really quite interesting with that aspect. But he's got this Snow White Godzilla type of monster.
Yeah,
he keeps
right.
on a leash.
That's right.
That freezes stuff.
Yep.
And so
Which
as
is-
they face off
Yeah.
against each other.
Recently, freezing is the enemy's tool,
Yes,
right?
yes,
One
it
that
is.
has-
Like we noticed that in Ghostbusters.
In Ghostbusters, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That the whole freezing element, which poor Kong, his right paw gets frostbitten, and then out of nowhere they develop this prosthetic hand for him. That I'm thinking, where in the heck did they get some of this stuff? I mean.
Well, wouldn't you think it's the updating of the axe or whatever he carries?
Yeah.
An evolution.
And then in some kind of like chain link rope
Right.
that
Yeah.
the bad monkey had.
Yes.
I think what they called him Scar or something.
That's
Scar
right. That's
Kong or
right.
whatever.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
Oh God! And here we are trying to stretch some credibility.
Well, yeah.
in
Now
this,
let me do
but-
another piece of stretch here.
Okay.
Would have been nice for them. Well, it wouldn't have been nice, but they could have expanded on or done something with Rebecca Hall other than making her a narrator.
Yeah.
Really is what she does. But I thought that there was something that they wanted to develop with her and the little deaf girl
Yeah.
because of her being the adoptive child.
Yeah, and I think Rebecca Hall was in the
Yeah.
previous one, the
Correct.
Kong versus
Yeah.
Godzilla or whatever. And in one review I read, they said if any of the actors, actresses that were wasted, it was her because she's very good. But it seemed like she was just there to explain plot points.
Well, she was, yeah.
Yeah, kind of like you said, narrate.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Which was good because, it's kind of like, I'm glad I got my second beer, that I could, and some popcorn to occupy my time.
Well, I interrupted the intense observation we had in the theater by commenting to you again. always, a little bit confused about the perspective of Kong than is of the size. And you've been something of an expert on the size.
I'm glad you brought that up because, and going way back to the brilliant, excellent old one in 1932. But here, I did lose all perspective because not only over time has Kong grown, because Godzilla was so huge in all the early Godzilla movies and everything else, and he seems like he's maybe kind of shrunken in size, and Kong's gotten bigger, and they're kind of equal. And I thought of any shot that amused me during this movie was Godzilla all curled up in the fetal position in the Roman Colosseum to take a nap.
Yes,
Early in the movie, and then near the end, as he's tired after,
All right, Wayne Miller, we've got to stop. If people want to hear more of if they think the movie's inane, our own inane discussion of this inane movie, they're going to have to go to Double Take.
Yes.
That's our highly ranked podcast.
Yes.
And you have to go to WCBE.org, the podcast experience,
Yep.
to listen to Double Take.
Yes.
What's your recommendation?
And I'm sure we've got friends like Keith and Will that love the MonsterVerse and stuff like that. I would recommend it to people like that. So, and I hope that they've seen it so they can explain some of it to me. But I tell you, John, one last comment. I am just getting really, as I said when we reviewed one of the Marvel movies, I'm really getting kind of tired of that. They need to breathe some life in it. And I'm hoping, like for Godzilla, they do the same thing with Kong and kind of go back to more of an original concept like they did in Godzilla -1.
Thank you. I'm John DeSando.
Classics, let's go to the movies and share some popcorn, soda pop with